The film industry is collapsing, budgets are gone, studios are replacing artists with AI, and real creative work barely pays anymore. But no one's saying the truth out loud. In this video, I'm exposing what they don't want you to see, a shift that's already happened, and why it's pushing thousands of creators out. The silver screen. For over a century, that's where dreams have been made. For us, the audience, and actually for so many people working their hearts out behind the scenes. But what if I told you that Hollywood's foundation, the whole global film industry as we know it, is actually starting to crack? What if that dream factory is turning into a bit of a nightmare for the people who depend on it to make a living? And let's not forget the shiny premieres and all that red carpet stuff for a minute. You might hear that global film and TV production is bouncing back, with actually some reports showing a 34% surge in activity in the first quarter of 2025 compared to 2024. That sounds good and great, right? But that's not the full picture, not even close. It's more like a shiny mask hiding a pretty messy situation. Take the US box office, a huge sign of how healthy the industry is. It kicked off 2025 looking pretty grim though, right? It was down 7% from an already tough 2024 by late March. And get this, March itself, it was expected to end down a whopping 50%. This isn't a little downturn. For a lot of folks, this feels like a quiet collapse, and you can bet that the film industry is hoping you just don't pay too much attention to it. But that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, saying it's a straightforward collapse is a little bit too simple, right? We got a lot to go in here. Like globally, movie productions did hit historic highs in 2023 with about 9,000 films made, which is more than before the COVID pandemic. And that early 2025 surge in global film and TV production activity was led by the US with about 1,300 new projects in the first quarter. And, India, for example, it is a powerhouse, producing over 2,500 films annually. Like, that's insane to think about, right? So if more films are being made worldwide, where's the problem? The problem is in the kind of movies and shows getting made, like where they're being filmed and, who's actually cashing in and what all this means for the traditional heartlands of filmmaking and the freelance workers like myself who've always been its lifeblood. And while total global content spending is pegged to hit around $248 billion in 2025, the growth is actually very tiny, just like 0.4% from 2024. And how that money is being spent, that's changing like big time. Hollywood, that iconic name, is seeing its star fade just a bit. Los Angeles, the slice of US content production, it's actually shrunk. But why? Well, it's simply because of the sky-high costs and other places waiving big tax incentives that are luring productions away from LA. I mean, think of states like New York, Oklahoma, Georgia, and even Mississippi, and also even countries like Canada and the UK. Like, they're all rolling out the red carpet with sweet deals. This means a painful loss of projects and jobs for Southern California. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, though. It's an entire ecosystem feeling the strain. And average weekly hours for California entertainment workers have dropped significantly in recent years. And even when hours picked up, wages haven't always kept up, right? And do you guys remember the 2023 actor and writer strikes in the US? They brought everything to a standstill. Sure, things actually picked up in early 24 and the first quarter of 2025, but the industry hasn't just magically snapped back to how it was before the strikes and also before the COVID pandemic. Feature film productions might have recovered to pre-pandemic levels or even better by the 2024, but TV, especially scripted shows, is on shakier ground, settling at a lower, though maybe more realistic level. What does that mean, though? Fewer steady long-term gigs for a lot of people. This takes us straight to the heart of the crisis, the freelancers. We're talking about, the editors, the cinematographers, the gaffers, grips, production assistants, writers, all those skilled pros who jump from one project to the next, and their world, it's pretty chaotic right now. And there are fewer of certain kinds of projects, like that great correction after the peak TV sugar rush, and productions moving to new, often cheaper places. And it all adds up to fewer chances for folks in the usual hub. And let me just be the first to say this, the freelance job crisis is actually real. You hear stories from the UK and Hollywood about people going for painfully long stretches without work, and it's so bad that many are forced to just leave the industry entirely. That flexibility that used to be a plus, it turns into a dangerous level of uncertainty. Like I heard from one industry expert, a prop master who's been a prop master for over like 20 years in the business, who said anonymously, of course, that he's had less work in the last 18 months from any other time in his career. And I know that he's not the only one, because honestly, I'm feeling the heat as well. And I know many of you guys are, and many others are actually just waking up to the harsh truth that the dream film job they actually busted their butts for is either vanishing or just not stable anymore. The competition's tougher, and the gigs are a lot shorter, and the pay often isn't keeping up with how expensive life is getting. And it's especially that way in places like Los Angeles. Like for many, this isn't just the market finding its level. It feels like their careers are on the line. Gig work is a big trend everywhere, but in film, it's hitting a workforce that's used to it. Only now, the gigs are way scarcer, and the safety nets, well, they're full of holes. At the same time, all this is happening on the production side. Movie theaters, once, the absolute king of the movie business, are in a fight for their lives. And I know you guys have been mentioning it in some of my comments on some of the videos I posted. Like you guys wanted me to cover a topic on this. And yeah, they're fighting for their lives right now. Actually, some analysts are still hoping for a big comeback in the box office. The numbers, well, they're pretty brutal right now. Like I said, in 2025, it started off rough for the US box office, and major cinema chains have already closed a lot of screens since 2019. And during the COVID pandemic, the US lost nearly 1,000 screens, and they're still closing. Like the number of people actually going to theaters and the total box office money are still way below what they were before COVID. And while global box office revenue did grow from 2020 to 2023, it hadn't fully bounced back. And then it actually dropped again in 2024. And part of that was a big dip in China's box office. Some industry insiders like former NATO head John Fiddion, and you guys correct me if I mispronounce his name because I probably did, but he argued that it's not that people have fallen out of love with movies, but that there aren't enough good films getting a wide release in theaters. And let's just be real. How we watch stuff has changed massively. Streaming platforms have totally flipped the script on how we get our entertainment, with giant libraries of content just literally clicks away. And digital media consumption is through the roof. In 2025, US adults are projected to spend nearly 8 hours a day with digital media, which is insane to think about. And get this, digital video viewing is expected to be over an hour more per day than traditional TV. Like YouTube alone is grabbing a huge chunk of TV viewing time, and that means audiences and ad money are going elsewhere. This isn't just a little competition, it's a whole new entertainment world. And speaking of streaming, it's a real mixed bag, right? Remember the streaming wars? Like companies were throwing billions at original content to get subscribers. It was a boom, right? But it wasn't built to last. In 2025, streamers are on track to spend a massive $95 billion on content. And for the first time, that's more than commercial broadcasters are spending globally. But here's the catch. That growth at any cost, well, party is over, right? Now it's all about making a profit and cutting costs and, getting more money out of the subscribers they already have. But what does that mean? Well, more careful decisions about what gets a green light. Potentially, There's going to be fewer original shows from some of the big players, and there's going to be a shift towards quality over just pumping out tons of stuff. While the overall global content spend is still projected to be around, $248 billion in 2025, the year-on-year growth rate is super small. It's like 0.4%. And that's after a pretty modest 2% growth in 2024, which got a bit of a boost from things like elections and, the Olympics. For freelancers, this correction means that flooding of streaming gigs from the late 2010s and early 2020s is actually drying up, and streamers are pickier, budgets are tighter, and we're probably not going back to those peak levels of brand new big budgeted productions across the board. We got AI, artificial intelligence. And we covered that actually in one of our previous videos about my top 3 features in DaVinci Resolve 2025, where they implemented artificial intelligence. It's freaking crazy, right? And this isn't actually some sci-fi dream anymore. It's here, and it's here to stay. And it's getting into filmmaking very fast. And, AI tools are literally popping up for script writers, for concept art, visual effects, editing, even creating digital versions of actors or faking voices. At the 2025 Cannes Film Festival, AI was a huge talking point. It was seen as both an amazing new tool and something to be really, really worried about. Like, the fans talked about how it can make things faster, cheaper, and some say AI could slash blockbusters' cost by 50%, which is a huge claim, and even make it easier for smaller teams to make cool stuff. We're seeing AI native studios starting up, right? Sometimes with just a handful of people doing work that used to need huge crews. But the scary part is the very real chance of jobs disappearing. Like, people working in VFX, editing, animation, even as the background actors, their roles are looking pretty shaky right now. The Hollywood strikes in 2023 did touch on AI, and it did get some protections, but this tech is moving really, really fast, and actually so fast that rules and laws are struggling to keep up. A lot of creatives, even myself, are worried that AI won't just help them do their jobs, but actually replace them, making the job market even smaller and making human creativity worth less. And some say AI will just do the boring stuff so humans can do the more creative parts. But that line between helping and replacing, it's getting pretty blurry. This is a lot to take in, and I know that I've spoke a lot and I covered a lot, but we need to talk about this because a lot of things are changing, and they're changing super fast. And it affects anyone who loves movies and TV, and especially anyone dreaming of working in this business. What do you guys think about all these changes? Are you seeing this happen in your job or your hometown? Like, tell me in the comments. We really need to talk about this. And the old Hollywood always wins model is also getting shaken up by filmmakers going global. Like I mentioned, countries like India are making a massive number of films. Canada, the UK, and a bunch of places in Europe and Asia are becoming really popular spots for productions, thanks to the good financial deals and talented local crews. And it's not just about shooting a few scenes on location. We're talking entire productions from start to finish, being based outside of the US. This is great for creating jobs in those areas, but it puts even more pressure on freelancers in places like Florida, Oklahoma, LA, anywhere that we are in the US, right? Plus, with global streaming platforms needing more shows and movies in local languages, content is being made all over the world. That diversifies where things are being made, but it also spreads out the workforce and could push down wages because of global competition. So back to the question, what is the big secret the industry doesn't want you to see? Well, it's probably not some evil plan. It's more like they're hesitant to really truly admit how deep and widespread all these changes are. They don't want you to see the nervousness behind the official everything's recovering statement. And also, the fear that this new normal might mean a permanent smaller pie for a lot of people. Like, they don't want you to put all the pieces together. The struggling theaters, the production moving, the streaming slowdown, the quiet stress of freelancers, and the huge question mark of AI taking jobs. Each of these things often gets talked about separately, but when you look at them all together, you'll start to, put the puzzle pieces together. You actually see an industry going through a massive and probably very painful makeover. Like, they don't really want to shout from the rooftops that the dream of a steady long-term career in many classic film jobs is getting way harder to find. And that might scare off like a lot of new talent or make experienced pros quietly head for the exits. The story of constant growth and glamour, that's super important for getting money, talent, and audiences. And admitting there's a huge, complicated crisis happening, that's a much tougher sell. The film industry isn't going to die, but it is going through a massive earthquake right now. And not everyone's going to come out on top in this new world. Even though global production numbers look up and streamers are still spending billions of dollars, the ground is definitely shaking under the feet of so many people who create the magic we love to actually watch. And the collapse isn't like a meteor hitting, right? It's more like an earthquake that's redrawing the whole entire map, like knocking down old buildings and leaving behind a very new and very uncertain landscape. For freelancers, it's a new challenge. Like, we're going to need to adapt and learn new skills and maybe think differently about where and how creative work is going to get done. For anyone wanting to get into filmmaking, though, it means you guys got to understand this new, more complicated reality. Like, Hollywood might still have that sparkle, but the road to success isn't as clear as it used to be, and I'm just being point blunt. The industry will find a way, though, and telling stories is simply something that we just do, right? But the Hollywood we all knew, the way that the industry worked, the career paths, those are all changing for good. And that's the collapse they'd rather you didn't spend too much time thinking about, because admitting it means facing a future that's a lot more unpredictable and a lot tougher than the glossy movie posters that they let on. So what do you guys think? What's the future for the film industry and the people who work in it? Is AI a total game changer for the worse, or is there an upside? And will movie theaters ever make a real comeback? And if you guys found this interesting, please share the video and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into stories every Friday. This is what's shaping our world in our industry, right? So anyway, if you guys want to get into more creating your own short film, I encourage you guys to watch this one next, and I'll see you guys in the video.